All right, so let's dive into this whole U.S. immigration thing. All the changes possibly coming with Trump back in the White House. We've got this video right from U.S. Immigration News. It's got some pretty interesting footage of a border visit, and then we've got this article here laying out Trump's immigration reform plans or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, he's not even inaugurated yet, and they're already making moves. Seems like they want to send a message.
Yeah.
About what their priorities are right out of the gate.
Definitely. So this video, right, it shows Tom Homan, Trump's whatever they call him, visiting the Arizona border. But get this, he's got Dr. Phil with him. Dr.
Phil. It's an interesting choice. I wonder what was the point of that? Was it just for show, or to get some attention, or did they actually have a real purpose for bringing him along?
Well, the report says they were there to, see border security firsthand, like assess the situation, and start coming up with plans to, address illegal immigration, all that. They were in Cochise County, Arizona. That's with Sheriff Mark Daniels.
Cochise County, huh? That's a pretty well-known spot for, illegal crossings and all that.
Yes, huh?
Choosing that location for the visit, it's well, it kind of seems strategic, doesn't it? I mean, it allows them to, point to it as an example of, how vulnerable the border is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they played up the visuals, too. I mean, there's this part in the video where they show Homan and Dr. Phil finding a ladder just left there by the wall, as if to say, look how easy it is to just walk right in. It's a pretty powerful image. I mean, it kind of feeds into that whole narrative of the border being, overrun.
Right. That ladder thing, it's interesting. I mean, is it really a sign of, a real security problem? Or is it just, a bit of stagecraft to make their point? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But, speaking of security concerns, Art Del Cueto from the Border Patrol Council, he was there too, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying how, agents are swamped with processing asylum claims and all that.
Yeah.
And that, that leaves them with less resources to actually patrol the border.
Yeah, he did say that. And it makes you wonder, I mean, are they really focused on actual security, or are they just, trying to push an agenda by using these dramatic images and stuff?
Right, exactly. And we can't forget, all of this is happening against the backdrop of, Trump's past rhetoric on immigration. Remember, when he used to talk about how the U.S. was under siege by migrants. He's always been big on deportations, promising to get tough on illegal immigration. And this border visit, I mean, it's like the first step in making good on those promises.
Yeah. And then there's Homan himself, right? I mean, his history is, well, it's a bit controversial. He was the acting ICE director under Trump before, and he oversaw that whole family separation policy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Family separation. That was pretty controversial, to say the least. I mean, it caused a lot of outrage, both here and internationally. So it's going to be interesting to see, if they try to bring back any aspects of that policy now. I mean, having Homan there definitely suggests they're going to, stick with those hardline tactics.
Yeah. Maybe. This article we've got, though, Ronald Trump begins immigration reform efforts. It doesn't actually mention family separation specifically, but it does say Homan's not waiting around for the inauguration. He's already taking action. Things like increasing drone surveillance, adding more cameras along the border.
Wow, so he's already, hitting the ground running. That's pretty telling. It seems like they're really trying to project this image of, taking charge, being decisive, and tackling this problem head on.
Right. And a big part of that seems to be targeting what they're calling criminal immigrants. The article talks a lot about how they're going to prioritize deporting people with criminal records or outstanding deportation orders.
Criminal immigrants, huh? That's an interesting term. We should probably, think about what that actually means, because, without clear definitions, it can be a bit misleading, right? What specific crimes are we talking about here? Is it violent crimes?
Mm-hmm.
Or, does it include minor offenses or visa overstays? The whole scope of Trump's deportation plan kind of hinges on how they define this term.
That's a good point. It's easy to, just get caught up in the rhetoric without really stopping to think about how these policies might actually play out in real life.
Exactly. And beyond deportation, the article also says Trump wants to, basically seal the border, which, I mean, that's pretty much in line with, his hardline stance from before.
Yeah.
It seems like he's doubling down on that whole approach.
So basically, it's a combination of, immediate action, a focus on enforcement, and more of that tough on immigration talk. But how does all of this fit into the bigger picture?
Well, it seems like Trump's trying to create this image, right, of strength and decisiveness on immigration. And he's using, powerful language and imagery to get that message across. The border visit with Dr. Phil, the focus on criminal immigrants, the promise to seal the border, it all contributes to that narrative.
Right, right. And speaking of, big players, we can't forget about Stephen Miller, right? He's back as a senior advisor, and he's basically the architect of Trump's whole immigration strategy.
Steve Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah, his return is, it's definitely significant. I mean, he was heavily involved in those controversial policies during Trump's first term. So him being back, well, it suggests that we're going to see more of the same approach.
Yeah, and it's quite an approach. He's laid out his vision for the first 100 days, and it's ambitious, to say the least. Deregulation to boost the economy, especially in energy, is a big part of it. But when it comes to immigration, it's all about immediate deportation of what he calls criminal aliens and putting pressure on other countries to accept them. He even uses the phrase new golden age to describe what he sees for America under Trump.
New golden age, huh? That phrase, it's loaded, isn't it? It kind of evokes this longing for a perceived past greatness, and then often gets tied to specific ideas about national identity and policies that exclude certain groups. It's a powerful message, and it definitely resonates with a certain segment of the population.
Yeah, it definitely sets a particular tone, and along with these plans, there's this big emphasis on accountability. Miller talks about holding government officials accountable, basically getting rid of anyone they see as disloyal or incompetent.
Right, that's classic drain the swamp rhetoric, isn't it? Like from Trump's first campaign, it's about portraying the government as this corrupt and inefficient system that needs to be completely overhauled.
So it's not just about immigration then, is it? It's about reshaping the whole government according to their vision.
Exactly. Immigration is a key part of it, for sure. But it's part of this bigger ideological project, right? That's trying to redefine American identity and how the government works.
To be fair, though, the article does try to present a somewhat balanced view. It mentions that while Trump is all about deportation, he also claims to recognize, the contributions of immigrants who are here legally.
Okay, yeah, that's worth noting. It's like they're trying to soften the edges of these, pretty hardline policies. But, the question is, will that rhetoric actually translate into any real protections for those immigrants? Like, when it comes down to it, will their actions match their words?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But one thing's for sure, U.S. immigration policy is about to change big time.
Absolutely. And it's important to, not just look at what these policies are, but also how they're actually put into practice. Like, who do they actually impact? And what are the long-term consequences, both for immigrants and for, American society as a whole?
And speaking of interesting developments, remember those temporary changes they're making at the border right now?
You mean like how it's easier to cross using the CBP One app now? Yeah. And how they're bypassing in-person appointments and stuff? Yeah. That's kind of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. On the one hand, they've got these temporary measures that actually seem to make it easier to cross the border. But on the other hand, you've got Trump's policies looming in the background, and those promise a much stricter approach.
It's a weird juxtaposition. It's like they're trying to deal with the immediate situation while also getting ready for this, massive overhaul of the whole system.
It definitely creates this stark contrast. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds once Trump actually takes office.
Yeah, for sure. That's what makes all of this so fascinating. We're on the verge of this huge shift in U.S. immigration policy, and the ripple effects are going to be felt everywhere.
Well, this deep dive has certainly been eye-opening. It seems like we're just at the beginning of what's going to be a pretty turbulent chapter in U.S. immigration history. We've got a lot more to unpack here, so stick with us.
It's definitely going to be a turning point, And as we dig into all this stuff, I keep thinking about, the people, right? Like the actual people who are going to be affected by all these changes. I mean, these are real lives, families, communities.
That's true. It's easy to get lost in all the political stuff, but we can't forget about the human side of this. I mean, these are people looking for safety, opportunity, or just a better life.
Exactly. And it's important to think about, what might happen, right?
Yeah.
The consequences. I mean, will these policies actually, stop illegal immigration? Or will they just, make people pay even bigger risks, put their lives in danger?
Yeah, it's a good point. And what about legal immigration? I mean, this article, it focuses so much on enforcement and deportation, but it doesn't really say anything about how Trump's plans might affect, people who are already here legally. or, people who are trying to come here the right way.
Yeah, that's a huge issue that often gets, kind of overlooked. Will they make it harder to get visas? Will they let in fewer refugees? I mean, these are big questions with big implications for, individuals, families, whole industries even.
It also makes me wonder about the economic side of things. We hear a lot about how Trump wants to boost the economy, deregulation, energy independence, all that. But where do his immigration policies fit in?
Yeah, that's where it gets really, really complicated. I mean, if they restrict immigration, it could mean higher wages for some American workers, right? Because there's less competition. But it could also lead to labor shortages in certain industries. And that could drive up costs and maybe even slow down the whole economy. It's a tough balancing act.
And then there's the social and cultural impacts, right? I mean, America's always been a country of immigrants. That diversity is part of what makes us strong, But these policies, they seem to be pushing this idea of exclusion, division.
Yeah, you're picking up on something important there. Trump's rhetoric often taps into these fears about, cultural change, national identity. And his policies, with all this talk about border security and deportation, they kind of reflect that, right? Like they're framing it as a way to protect, this idea of the American way of life.
Right. It's like he's drawing a line, saying who belongs and who doesn't.
And that can have, some pretty serious consequences for social cohesion. It can create this atmosphere of fear and suspicion, pitting groups against each other.
Yeah.
And that kind of undermines those shared values we have, inclusivity, opportunity, all that.
It's definitely a different message than, the whole unity and hope thing we usually hear from leaders.
Right. And it really makes you ask, what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country that welcomes newcomers, embraces diversity? Or do we want to be a country that shuts itself off from the world, builds walls, and turns away people who are just looking for a better life?
Those are some big questions, for sure. Questions we need to think about as a society. And the answers we come up with, they're going to have a lasting impact, for generations to come.
Absolutely. It's not just about immigration policy. It's about who we are as a nation, what we believe in.
So this deep dive has taken us from, border visits and deportation plans to these deep philosophical questions about American identity.
Yeah, and it shows how even these, seemingly technical policy issues can have these deep ethical and philosophical dimensions.
It's a reminder that it's important to, keep having these conversations, asking the tough questions, and listening to different points of view.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, the choices we make now, they're going to shape the world we live in tomorrow. We have a responsibility to make sure those choices are, informed and just and compassionate.
I gotta say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this. It's a lot to process.
I get it. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with these complex and emotionally charged issues.
Yeah.
But, you don't have to have all the answers right now.
That's true. Sometimes the most important thing is just to ask the right questions, and keep the conversation going.
Exactly. And be open to learning.
Yeah.
And challenging your own assumptions and listening to perspectives that are different from your own.
I think that's a good place to take a break for now. We've covered a lot of ground, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface of this incredibly complex issue.
Yeah, there's always more to explore, more to learn, more to discuss. And as we keep going, it's important to do it with open minds and a commitment to finding the truth and understanding each other.
Couldn't agree more. This has been a real deep dive, and I appreciate your insights.
It's been my pleasure, getting to talk about these important issues and shed light on them. It's always a privilege.
And to our listener, thanks for coming along with us on this journey. We encourage you to keep exploring these topics, challenge your own perspectives, and talk to people, have those conversations.
Because, in the end, the future of immigration policy, the future of our country, it depends on all of us being willing to engage with these issues, learn and work together to create a world that's more just and equitable for everyone.
So what does all of this mean for you listening right now?
That's the question, isn't it? We've laid out the facts, the plans, the potential consequences, but how does it all actually connect to your life, right? Your community, your future?
This isn't just some, abstract political debate. It's about real world impacts, big and small.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's bring it down to earth a little bit. Think about your own life. If they actually do all these things, how might it affect your job, your neighborhood, your access to services?
Like, for example, what if you work in an industry that relies on, immigrant labor? agriculture, construction, hospitality, things like that. How might these changes affect your workplace? Could it lead to, worker shortages, higher prices, or even, changes in what kinds of goods and services are available?
And think about your community. How might these policies, change the makeup of your neighborhood, the culture? Will we see more tension, more division? Or could there be, maybe some unexpected opportunities for people from different cultures to understand each other better and work together?
And what about your own interactions with the government? Will it be harder to access certain services, get visas, sponsor family members?
These are all good questions to think about. I really encourage you to, to look beyond the headlines and think about how these policies might actually affect you.
Because, knowledge is power. The more we know, the better prepared we'll be to deal with these changes and speak up for policies that we believe in.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with one last thought. We've talked a lot about the economic impact, the social impact, but there's another dimension to all of this that we haven't really touched on, and that's the moral dimension.
The moral dimension. Yeah, that's always a tricky one.
It is, but it's important because, at the heart of all of this are these fundamental questions about, human dignity, compassion, our responsibility to help those in need.
Right. I mean, are we a country that puts security above everything else? Even if it means turning our backs on people who are just looking for a safe place or a chance to make a better life? Or do we believe in a more humane approach? One that balances security with, compassion and justice?
Those are the questions I want you to think about. Because the answers we come up with as a society, they're going to say a lot about who we are, what we truly stand for.
That's a powerful thought to leave us with. I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on today.
I hope so. And I hope they'll keep exploring these issues and talk about them with other people.
Yeah.
And use their voices to create the kind of future they want to see.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep working towards a better world.
It is, yeah. It really makes you think. And I think that moral dimension it's key. It's so easy to get caught up in the economics of it all, the political back and forth. But ultimately, like you said, this is about people.
Exactly. Real people. Families running from danger. Individuals trying to make a better life for themselves. And when we reduce them to just numbers or, political talking points, we kind of lose sight of that, We forget their humanity.
Yeah. And I think that's where the listener comes in, right? We can't just sit back and absorb all of this. We have to, actually engage with it personally. Exactly. Ask yourself, how do these changes, how do they line up with your values? What kind of society do you want to be a part of? One that closes its doors on people in need, or one that, offers a helping hand?
And it's not about having all the answers right now. It's about, asking those questions, being open to hearing different perspectives, even if they, challenge what we think we know.
And it's about, actually doing something. Educate yourself. Talk to your friends and family. Reach out to your elected officials. Make your voice heard.
Yeah, that's a powerful message. I mean, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this, but we all have a part to play in making things better, in creating a more humane immigration system.
Absolutely. And remember, this deep dive, it's just the beginning. There's so much more out there to learn, so many ways to get involved.
Thanks again for walking us through all of this. It's been really eye-opening.
My pleasure. These conversations, they're so important.
And to our listeners, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Keep learning, keep asking those questions, and keep fighting for a world that reflects your values.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel US Immigration News. We hope you are doing great. Well, in today's video, we will be talking about incoming Trump border Caesar. Tom Homan visit the Arizona-Mexico border with Dr. Phil. Tom Homan, President-elect Donald Trump, choice to lead immigration policy, visited the Arizona-Mexico border with talk show host Dr. Phil on December 6, 2024, signaling is the intention to begin immigration reform efforts before Trump's official inauguration. Homan, who served as acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement during Trump's first term, emphasized that they would not wait for January 20 to take action. Instead, they aim to lay the groundwork for securing the southern border immediately, highlighting a sense of urgency. The visit of Tice County in Arizona marked Homan's first public appearance in the state since the election. He and Dr. Phil met with local sheriffs and border patrol agents, inspecting the broader border area and discussing strategies to combat illegal immigration and improve border security. They also noted challenges such as the increased illegal activity seen near the border wall, and Homan emphasized that securing the border was a priority. Homan visit coincided with a broader immigration reform plan outlined by Trump's administration. Trump's immigration strategy will focus on deporting criminals, particularly those with criminal records or outstanding deportation orders. The emphasis will be on public safety, with a focus on individuals who pose a risk to American society, such as gang members or drug traffickers, while differentiating between criminals and law-abiding immigrants as a part of Trump immigration overall. The administration planned to seal the US-Mexico border and take a tough stance on illegal immigration. Stephen Mahler, a senior advisor to Trump, indicated that the first 100 days of new administration will be dedicated to border security and enforcing immigration law. This includes removing foreign criminals and ensuring that countries take back individuals who have violated US laws. Trump's vision also includes an aggressive approach to deregulation, particularly in the energy sector, which is expected to stimulate economic growth and job creation. By removing bureaucratic obstacles, Trump aims to reduce costs for consumers, revive American energy dominance, and boost the economy. Additionally, the administration will focus on government accountability, replacing officials who undermine national interest. Trump's immigration policies will starkly contrast with those of the Biden administration, which has focused on deporting individuals posing an immediate threat to public safety. Under Biden, border crossings increased, but there were some measures to restrict asylum seeking. As Trump prepared to take office, his supporters are eagerly waiting the implementation of his strict border security and immigration enforcement policies.